After decades of false starts and creative reboots, we finally have a new Red Sonja movie. So let's talk about it. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, have you seen Red Sonja? If you have, what did you think about it? And give me that point of reference. Are you someone that grew up on the Conan and Red Sonja movies of the 80s? Have you read the comics? All of that fun stuff. Now, as for me, this is a project I've kind of been waiting for over 15 years. And not that I'm like a massive Red Sonja fan, I certainly am not, but I did kind of grow up watching Conan the Destroyer, and Red Sonja were staples of like Saturday afternoon movies on network television. So they were just kind of those things that were always out there. And then back in the zeros, Robert Rodriguez was going to do a Red Sonja movie with Rose McGowan. And Robert Rodriguez, for a number of reasons, is one of those directors that's kind of been a big influence on me as just a movie lover, because he kind of rose to fame in the late 90s when I was starting to discover movies. He's from Austin, San Antonio. He's all over the Austin film scene. And so always rooting for him. Read his book, Rebel Without a Crew, back in the day. And not all that long after I read the book, he started working on this project, so I was paying attention to it. And then it never happened. And then other people are going to do it, And finally, a version got traction and was getting made, but with a much smaller budget and from less famous filmmakers and actors and actresses. So I was just kind of curious how it was going to be. I was kind of excited from certain things they said. The trailer looked pretty cheap. I heard some things that were kind of encouraging. I went into it like optimistic, but very cautious. How did I feel about it? Let's talk about it. And the simplest way for me to summarize my recommendation on this film: if you are okay with the fact that this is a $17 million film trying to be a $50 or $75 million film, and you like this genre, there's fun to be had. But you have to understand that in a lot of ways, this is a true B movie. It's trying to do something bigger than it has the actual budget to pull off. Does it deliver the action, the genre, the creatures, some gore, the rising heroes, the reluctant heroes, the betrayals? Like, does it have all of those pieces that you want in this genre? Yes, it does. Is it a film with a very limited budget that you can notice while you're watching the film? Yes, there are huge budget limitations here, and you just have to be able to forgive that. And if you can, there's a lot of fun to be had. And as someone that watches a lot of direct-to-video films, I think that there's an important market for B-movies and direct-to-video films, that if Hollywood and big studios aren't going to throw big money at delivering certain genres, then they have to be made on a smaller budget, and you'll notice that. If you're used to watching these $100 million, $200 million blockbusters, the CGI in this film will look amateurish. All of it looks cheap. Some of it looks terrible. That is a concession for the movie to be able to exist. To be able to tell a story of this scope and size, certain things had to be done cheaper than would be preferred. That's what this movie is. And that's something like I said, I watch a lot of direct-to-video action movies and grew up watching a lot of schlocky, and still watch a lot of schlocky 80s B movies. And I think this movie delivered what I wanted out of it. That pretty early on sets up the situation of who our Red Sonja is. The middle of the movie is very much Gladiator with mystical creatures. The later parts of it kind of turn into let's fight the Empire, big rebellion type story. You've got a MacGuffin chase for mystical relics and items in there, all in a movie that's under 2 hours and with a $17 million budget. So it's like the tight, condensed, cheapy version of a big sword and sorcery epic tale. And there's a lot of smart choices that they made in how they decided to handle the size of it, where there's really only a few sets that we have, like a small town village that we spend time battling in, and then we have the big Colosseum that we go to. And so when we go to the big city, we see the Colosseum and we see where the slaves live, and then we have big broad shots that are CGI of this non-existent town, but it's able to give scope and size to a story that has to be fairly contained to the Colosseum, their chamber, and this village over here in the forest. And so, like, it does a lot with the $17 million that it has, and structures it nicely to be able to get action, spectacle, the rise of a hero to topple empires. Like, it's able to do a lot because of the way that it structures the story and the number of environments that it goes to. The whole movie has that shot on digital look to it. I'm not a camera expert or anything like that, but whatever that camera thing is, where you have this footage that is sharp and crisp, has depth of field, vibrant colors, but when you look at it, it still looks cheap. And it's that digital effect of however digital cameras can pick up light or whatever, that when you see it, it just doesn't seem cinematic. That's the look of this movie, and I don't know how much of it even is some of the color grading, that there's shots that it just felt like they needed to do something to, in post, adjust the image to just give it a more cinematic look. But like it has a cheap look to it. And once again, I imagine it's because they're almost certainly shooting with digital cameras or something like that get the job done, but don't necessarily deliver that cinematic quality when you think about true movies, that look, the grain. It's almost too clean. It's too sharp in certain ways. It doesn't have the right contrast because it picks up shadows too well, and darks are too bright because the cameras are too good in certain ways. And what makes them kind of better than film cameras makes them look worse and cheaper in this other sense. So when you combine kind of that cinematography with a fair bit of cheap CGI, you get something that can come off quite a bit like a feature-length fan film. A really well-done feature-length fan film at times. Which is frustrating because there's also a lot of really great practical sets in here. That, the village in the city, they built out this whole town with gigantic wood structures everywhere. They burn woods and stuff. So when it goes practical, it actually looks really good. Some of the stuff in the Colosseum, inherently, they do not have this actual Colosseum with hundreds of extras in the background. And so you're trying to do the gladiator effects and sports movie stadium effects on the cheap. And you see that when you're watching. When they do creature designs, you go, there's something almost really cool here, but also I can see the limitations of it. And I keep going back to that because if you can forgive that, there's a fun movie here that I enjoyed. But also you have to, a fair evaluation of it acknowledges like some of this stuff doesn't work. And it's so built into this one, you just have to be able to accept the limited budget. And if you can, then you can engage with the other stuff on it. If you like sword and sorcery movies, if you like movies with stories like Gladiator, think of this in certain ways as B-movie Gladiator. If you like tales of the slave that turns into the leader of the rebellion, and all of it with a mystical touch to all of it, where there's these beasts and creatures of ages past, mythical ages past that never existed. Like if you're into that sort of thing, like that's what this movie is. It's that type of story, just done on a limited budget. And there's some of the stuff when you get into the final reveals of everything. I think at times they make choices that shrink the universe a little bit too much, where let's build out a big world and then a few too many people have connections in the nature of what we're searching for and mysterious pasts and everything. I think they went a little bit too small with the connections. But at the same time, they were putting some amount of effort into giving our characters backstory depth, ties to things that have happened. And so appreciated the effort, but a few too many everybody knows somebody some way type stuff happening in it. So for me, by no means classic sword and sorcery, by no means a great movie, by no means like, man, wow, finally we have the Red Sonja movie we've always wanted. But understanding that Hollywood's not going to make the $100 million version of it. Some people went out and they made the version at a fraction of the cost, that it hits the right beats. It's got creatures, it's got action, and it's got just those beats of like the rising hero and stuff that land right, and just the right amount of connections to characters with the side characters that have their own backstory and reluctant heroes and stuff like that just gets you invested enough in it. Great cinema, no. Solid genre film on a budget, I think so. Overall, a B- on the entertainment scale, 6.5 out of 10. If you like the genre and can forgive bad VFX, it's worth a stream. Maybe someday we'll get a revival in this genre and get the big budget version, but for what it is, it worked well enough. So I'm happy enough with its existence.